do you think that there is actually some deleted scenes that Lucasfilm, for whatever reason, haven't released yet? Because there's stuff I've heard about through the years that is not, that was shot that I haven't seen on any of the Blu-rays yet.
Yeah, more and more keeps coming out. It's amazing for a film, that's 40 years old, pretty much. A couple of years back, there was a guy, Jonathan Rinsler, who made some big coffee table books. You may have seen the making of Star Wars Empire. Yeah, and he released some ebook versions of those, and he dug up even more outtakes and deleted scenes. This is the problem with my projects, particularly with Star Wars. I wanted Star Wars Begins to be like the completest version. This is everything you need to know with every deleted scene. And of course, as soon as I release it, I hear an interview with Dennis Lawson, who played Wedge on the radio, and this book gets released, this ebook gets released. So there's so much stuff out there, and to me, to somebody like me, the idea of going into a vault in Lucasfilm or in Fox or in Sony Pictures or Warner Brothers is just really tantalizing, actually, just that thought of being able to dig this stuff up. There's a guy who did a excellent Blade Runner documentary.
Dangerous Days, yeah, the book's incredible as well.
I've actually been speaking to this guy over the last few years, and he's saying, "Oh, you've got to do a filmumentary on Blade Runner, because there's so much. You could make a different film just with the outtakes and the alternate angles and stuff." So, there's this stuff. The stuff is out there. It's on shelves in archives. It's just a matter of trying to collate it together. The advantage with Star Wars, of course, is that there's a massive fan base, and it's like this huge collective. So we did swap material, but each time I've gone down the line with Raiders, it was a bit more difficult, and with Jaws, it's even more difficult. And then I kind of struggled to come up with the idea of what to do next without having that kind of access, some sort of official endorsement from a studio, so I can go into their archives and dig stuff up.
And what have you in the pipeline? Have you any stuff coming up? Because it's one of the things, since I kind of watched your stuff, I was just like, I can't wait to see what you're going to do next, because there's so many cult movies that I'd love to see kind of you give the filmumentary treatment.
Yeah, well, thanks. That's nice to hear. Well, I've looked at Blade Runner. I've looked at doing 2001. I've looked at the Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, maybe finish off that trilogy. The fourth one doesn't exist, as we know.
Yeah. Any chance of a Terminator?
Terminator would be great. I mean, yeah, Terminator 2 is one of my favorite movies as a sort of, young adult, I guess. But I did end up having big talks with Warner Brothers. They wanted to do Superman, they wanted to do Goonies, they wanted to do a whole bunch of movies, and then they just had a reshuffle at Warner, and the people that had said yes moved to different departments, and that was the end of that.
Oh, that's heartbreaking.
It was tough at the time, but in the last 2 or 3 months, I've also been talking to another big studio about another franchise, film franchise. I won't mention it because I don't want to jinx my chances, but we're actually very close to sealing a deal. Yeah, it's quite exciting at the moment. I could almost touch it a couple of weeks ago. We had a meeting, and they loved the idea, and the timing couldn't be better, and this is going to be wonderful. But it's so easy to lap up that kind of talk. In Hollywood, that kind of lip service is dished out on a daily basis. But it does seem that each week that goes past, it's getting more and more likely, let's say.
I mean, is there any particular dream projects for you? Like, if you could pick what kind of one franchise or one couple of films that you'd love to do, just get into the archives and do sort of coverage of, what would they be?
I think something like Alien I would love to do, but then again, there's been some great extras on Alien already.
What did you think of the Blu-ray collection for Alien?
I did get the Blu-ray collection. I haven't seen it all, but the thing that always troubles me with these extras, as I said at the start of us chatting, they're all a bit disparate and unconnected, disconnected. They're not. I like to pull it all together to make something kind of meaty and interesting to watch. I'm not really interested in talking heads for 2 hours. I want to see test runs of the costume in the context of the scene it could have been in. And I want to hear people talking about the problems they had. The challenges, not just, oh, I read the script and the script was great and we had a great time. Well, I want to see this. I want to see it. I want to hear about the problems. Like in Star Wars Begins, I found one interview that Mark Hamill did on, I think it was GMTV or something, where he's talking about they had to stop filming because the ladybugs were mating or something in Tunisia. Stuff that he wouldn't necessarily have said in a in an official documentary. So yeah, I mean, what Alien definitely, Terminator, Blade Runner, Planet of the Apes, 2001. I'd love to do The Shining, but I've had a massive knockback from the Kubrick estate. Let's say I got a very a very plain and simple email. We do not wish to have any involvement with you whatsoever with your filmumentaries products. Please do not contact us again. Just nothing, because I know for a fact that in that Kubrick archive in Southeast London, there's about 40 hours of behind the scenes material.
His daughter shot, didn't she?
Yeah, that Vivian Kubrick shot, because originally that cut was twice as long, and it got shortened and turned into essentially a promotional video, as a lot of making ofs were back then and still are now. But you know, there are some amazing behind the scenes bits in that short 25, 30 minutes, whatever it is, but there's 40 hours sitting there. And it's the same with Full Metal Jacket. It's all sitting there on little film cans, and it's all been converted to Betamax, believe it or not, and it's all sitting there degrading. And they're just not interested in anybody taking it on. I think potentially, well, I get the feeling maybe they were a bit stung by Room 237, the rather outlandish conspiracy theory documentary.
I mean, surely at this point your work kind of speaks for itself. You know, you've got 4 feature-length documentaries now that, you know, are as good, if not better, as any of the official stuff brought out. Like, you know, I don't understand, kind of like, surely like they could kind of see and go, well, this is a legitimate filmmaker here with a unique take on how to utilize this material. Like,
well, this is what I'm trying to convince the studio I'm talking to at the moment. You know, I come with an audience, I come with a brand, I come with a kind of a particular style of doing things, but they're so afraid of giving somebody permission to just go and do something. They want to have to fit into their social media platform planning for 10 years. You know, that, you know, you speak to any studio now and they're like, okay, what's your 5-year plan? No, what's your 10-year plan? You're like, I just want to make one thing to prove to you I can make a thing. You don't even have to. I even said to the Kubrick estate, I said, you don't even have to pay me. I'll donate all of the money it makes back into the archive. No, not interested. It's a strange world. When you dip your toe into that sort of Hollywood world, you suddenly realize that a lot of places are not being run by creative people. They're being run purely by businessmen and women. You know, it is a business at the end of the day. But something like a filmumentary might cost, even if it was to be done with the full disclosure and encouragement and access to a studio, probably do it for $500,000. You could put it on Netflix and it would probably make twice its money back, you know.
I mean, but even just as a resource for filmmakers and, you know, fans of the films, it's invaluable, because there was a kind of golden era of like DVD, you know, documentaries and commentaries and stuff, and that's all died out. And I can't see, you know, with studios so worried about piracy, I don't understand how they can't see that extra supplements are something they can't download and they can't stream and they can't torrent. You know, if you're just releasing a movie on disc and all it is the movie, where's your incentive to buy that as opposed to just watch it on Netflix? You know, and partly is like something, you know, for the next generation of filmmakers as well. It's like, you know, even getting the filmmaker to talk for 2 hours about, you know, I have like rips of Laserdisc commentaries that have never been released on Blu-ray or DVD, and like the Hughes brothers commentary for Dead Presidents is incredible, and that's something that'll just get lost if people aren't like kind of preserving it. You know, and I understand it.
Go on, sorry.
I understand that, like, for a studio, that's possibly not the first thing on the list. Is, yeah, you know, like, you know, filmmakers kind of learning from these films. But surely, like, even from a money incentive point of view, like, as you say, that can be done with a fairly low overhead by people who are passionate about them. And they'll be able to monetize them anyway. You know, even if it's just another reason to buy the Blu-ray.
Yeah, this is another thing I'm trying to convince the studios of. I'm saying, you know, if this is a film franchise that has already a number of films, and maybe there's films planned further down the line, it feeds into that whole thing. You know, from a very sort of cynical marketing point of view, it appeases the film fanatics, it appeases the fans of the franchise, but surely it does the studio a favor by keeping their brand in the forefront. And to be honest, I think that's why to this day I've not been, you know, chucked any legal action in my way. You know, Fox have been very good, and who else did I do? Paramount and Universal with Jaws. None of them have contacted me to say remove your content from Vimeo, because I think they do understand that deep down. I think they do understand that, you know, all right, I'm nowhere. I'm just a minuscule little blip on the Jaws timeline. But you know, when it's a double page spread in the New York Times and a BBC Radio 4 interview, they haven't spent any money, you know, for me to go and do this thing. I think they understand now, a lot of the big studios, that it's great to have their franchise put up there, as long as it isn't a damaging, as long as it's not taking money away from them. But somehow they don't seem to convert that into, well, let's go down that route. Let's get this guy and get him to make some stuff for us. I'd love to do it, you know, and I've been knocking my head against the wall for about.
I'm surprised Fox kind of never approached you about the Die Hard series, because if there's something they've re-released dozens of times on DVD, you know, like,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, imagine you doing like the first three, or at least four, you know, 4 or 3 Die Hard movies, and I mean, that's something that, you know, the fans will buy again if something of that quality is on the disc. And I mean, Arrow and Criterion are 2 of the DVD companies that kind of like, they're probably like the companies that are doing the best out of DVD at the minute. But I mean, that's because they have some extra supplements and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the other thing is it kind of, for film students and people that are, you know, going through school and going through college, it kind of takes them back to those movies in a different way. You know, it might be fairly dull for them to sit there and watch 3 hours of 2001, but maybe if they watched an hour and a half of, or 2 hour filmumentary about it, about the filmmaking process, they might end up with a, you know, a better respect for the film. And I think it, you know, it all comes full circle. It's just, yeah, I'm still trying to convince them, but I'm very close at the moment. I wish, it's a shame, because I was hoping to hear today, and I was hoping to be able to say to you, look, it's happened.
We could do a follow up at some point.
Yeah, well, listen, if anything does happen, I'll definitely let you know.